So, today we're going to climb a ladder. Not just any ladder, but a ladder to the heavens, using a guide that was written almost 1,400 years ago. It's an ancient text for sure, but it's built around a question that feels incredibly modern.
I mean, we all face this, right? That constant inner struggle between who we want to be and our worst impulses. The battle between feeling at peace and feeling completely chaotic, between being disciplined and just getting distracted by everything. And believe it or not, one of the most powerful roadmaps for this inner journey doesn't come from a modern-day guru. It comes from the sands of the Sinai Desert, written by a monk who basically spent his entire life mapping out the human soul. Our guide for this is a man named John Climacus. And his masterpiece? Well, it uses this one single, incredibly powerful metaphor to explain the entire spiritual life.
So, John was the abbot at the famous St. Catherine's Monastery, right at the foot of Mount Sinai. And he wrote this book, The Ladder of Divine Ascent, not as some abstract philosophical treatise, but as a real, practical field guide for his monks. He saw the journey towards spiritual wholeness as a ladder with 30 distinct steps or rungs. And each rung, it represents a specific vice you have to conquer or a virtue you have to master. Okay, so how do you even start a climb like this? Well, according to John, the very first step is actually the most radical one of all. You have to leave everything behind. The key idea here is a Greek word, xenoteia. And this means so much more than just taking a trip. We're talking about a total voluntary exile. It's the decision to become a stranger to your old life, your home, your job, your social status, even your family, so that you can start this inner journey. It's not just about moving houses. It's a massive psychological break with your past. And John really doesn't pull any punches about how hard this is. I mean, this quote just perfectly captures the stark choice he's laying out. To really start climbing, he argues, you have to decide which desire is going to be the fire that guides you. In his view, you just can't serve two masters. So once you've made that break, the real work begins. The whole middle section of the ladder is this intense internal war against what John calls the passions, which you can think of as those destructive emotional and psychological habits that are always trying to pull us down. What's so fascinating is how John frames this battle. See, it's not just about stopping bad behavior. It's about actively replacing a vice with its total opposite virtue. Let's take anger. It's not enough to just not yell at someone. The real goal is to cultivate true meekness, a state of inner calm so complete that you are totally unmoved by insults or compliments. Now that's what real victory looks like. John even personifies the vices. He gives them a voice, which is just a brilliant literary move. Here he has gluttony itself introduce its own destructive family. It's such a clever way to show how one unchecked passion never just exists on its own. It spawns a whole bunch of other problems. You get your relationship with food under control, and suddenly you have a better shot at tackling lust, laziness, and disrespect. And this is a perfect illustration of that chain reaction. A single spark of anger, if you let it fester, leads you to obsessively replay what someone did to you. Then that obsession poisons your speech and you start slandering them. And finally, you might even start lying to make your own anger seem justified. It's a total downward spiral, a chain where every single link is forged by the one before it. So, we've seen the battle against vice, but just fighting isn't enough, right? The other side of the climb is about building something new, the active cultivation of virtue. These aren't just passive states of being good, they are strengths that you have to actively forge in the fire of daily life. One of the most important virtues for John is his sakia. Now, we might translate that as silence or stillness, but honestly, that doesn't even come close. It's the goal of quieting not just your mouth, but all that endless chatter inside your own head. It's about reaching a state of total inner peace, this deep quiet where you can finally start to hear what actually matters. John fills his book with these little stories to illustrate the virtues, and some of them are, well, they're pretty shocking. He tells us one story of a young monk, Acacius, who was brutally mistreated by his spiritual father for 9 long years and never once complained. 5 days after Acacius died, another monk goes to his tomb and calls out, "Brother Acacius, are you dead?" And supposedly, a voice comes from the grave and replies, "Father, how can a man who has served always in obedience ever die?" It's just a stunning, unforgettable image of what total commitment to a virtue like obedience really meant in his world. So after all of this struggle, leaving the world behind, battling all these vices, forging these incredible virtues, where does the ladder actually lead? I mean, what's waiting at the very top? Okay, so the state you're aiming for at the 29th rung is something called apatheia. Now, I know what that sounds like, our word apathy, but it means the exact opposite. It's not a state of not caring about anything. It's a state of such profound inner freedom and spiritual health that the passions just can't disturb your peace anymore. It's not numbness, it's total mastery over your inner world. And here's the crucial point. After 29 rungs of intense effort and struggle, the final step isn't another battle. It's the prize. It's the natural destination that you arrive at after all the hard work of the climb. And that brings us to the 30th and highest rung of the ladder. It is agape, or divine love. For John, this is it. This is the ultimate destination, the virtue that holds all the others together. It is the complete union of the soul with God, because, as he says, God is love. You know, John Climacus was writing for monks in a desert 14 centuries ago, but his metaphor, it's just timeless. We are all climbing some kind of ladder in our careers, in our relationships, in our own personal growth. So the question his ancient text really leaves for us today is a simple one. What does the top of your ladder look like? And is it actually taking you where you truly want to go?